land in Canaan, land of milk and honey, played out in Minnesota and other states in the north central United States and in the nation. To start, let's consider a paper written by George M. Stevenson from the University of Minnesota, which was titled, "When America Was the Land of Canaan," unquote. It was read at the first Hutchinson session of the 8th State Historical Convention on June 14, 1929. In the paper, Stevenson talks of the thousands of letters that found their way from the USA back, quote, to the small red cottages hidden among the pine-clad rocky hills of Sweden, unquote. These letters talked about a new and ideal land, the wonderful country across the Atlantic, a land of milk and honey. A letter in November 1849 says, quote, "I sincerely hope that nobody in Sweden will foolishly dissuade anyone from coming to this land of Canaan," unquote. A letter written in October 9th, 1849 says, quote, "My words are inadequate to describe with what joy we are permitted daily to draw water from the well of life, and how we have come to the land of Canaan flowing with milk and honey, which the scriptures tell us the Lord has prepared for his people," unquote. There are many more such letters talking about the promised land, land of Canaan, land of milk and honey. These Swedish immigrants truly believed that Yahweh, the Jewish God of the Old Testament, promised and prepared Minnesota Makoche, the ancient homelands of the Dakota people of Minnesota, for them. They further believed that they were the chosen people and they were symbolic Israelites, as did the Germans, the Norwegians, and English, the Belgians, and the other criminal Western European immigrants who were to become the Euro-Americans. Since the white settlers or land stealers identified themselves as God's chosen people and Dakota lands were the promised land given to them by Yahweh, the Old Testament God, what was the indigenous perspective? Let me quote Robert Woyer, an Osage man and an academic, who wrote this classic statement with whom the native peoples identify. "The obvious characters in the story for native peoples to identify with are the Canaanites, the people who already lived in the Promised Land. As a member of the Osage Nation, who stands in solidarity with other indigenous peoples around the world, I read the Exodus stories with Canaanite eyes, and it is the Canaanite side of the story that has been overlooked. Especially ignored are those parts of the story that describe Yahweh's command to mercilessly annihilate the indigenous populations." In conclusion, it is easy to see how powerful and persuasive the biblical notions of the chosen people, the promised land, Canaan, and the genocidal commands of the Jewish God of the Old Testament were upon not only the Swedish immigrants to Minnesota, but also upon other Western European immigrants. These biblical notions were also the basis for the racist, white supremacist, and evil doctrine of manifest destiny. Like the Israelites of old, who exterminated, removed, and stole from the Canaanites, the U.S. and its white citizenry exterminated, removed, and stole from the Dakota people of Minnesota and from the indigenous peoples of what is now known as the United States of America. I would like to think that the viewer has caught a small glimpse of how significant the Bible and some of its evil teachings were, and were so instrumental in what was done to the Dakota people of Minnesota and to other indigenous peoples of the U.S. Hopefully, you have also gotten an idea of what my book, The Great Evil, is about. Thank you.